Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating Podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway, and in this episode, I'll be covering the pairs event at the 2024 Finlandia Trophy. This event was won by Deanna Stellato and Maxime Duchamp of Canada. Sometimes I use Stellato Dudek. Most of the time, I just use Stellato. Deanna has said that her and her husband have gotten a divorce, but because when she filed paperwork to become a citizen with Canada, she filed under Stellato Dudek, so she still has to use that name, but for all intents and purposes, she is Deanna Stellato. So most of the time, I'll probably just use that. They have talked a lot of times over the past few months, but especially during the Grand Prix season, about how diligent that she is with her diet, her on ice and off ice kind of workout. I remember reading an article earlier that she didn't even have a glass of wine like all season last year until their trip home from Worlds. So girlfriend is super dedicated to doing whatever she needs to do to win. I think she's been such an incredible inspiration for so many skaters and for a lot of us fans. They win here in the short program. The music that everybody doesn't like, I will give them this. They do use a lot of the accents of the music, like with the twist on the breath, the throw on the big swell of the music. I do think the music gets a little tired as the program goes on. Like maybe if the step sequence was to something else, or could have been really crazy if they would have busted out like the actual version of Crazy in Love for something like that. But they landed everything well. They got level 4s on everything. Big score for them. Still not as high as we have seen Mura and Kihara get, but higher than we've seen Hasi and Boliden get in their short program. In their free skate, I just think this program is a bit dull. It's not bad, and it's certainly better than like the Cleopatra program that they used 2 seasons ago. It's definitely not as strong as last year's. I don't love the side-by-side double salchows that they're doing right now, although this is pretty par on the course for them in this part of the season. They tend to add those throw triple sals later in the season. They're definitely going to need them if they want to repeat as world champions. They did have an issue on the throw triple lutz, which is a newer element for them this year, but other than that, everything else was clean, and it was enough to get the win here. In second place was Pavlova and Svievchenko from Hungary. They did not have a great outing at Skate America, and frankly, didn't have a super great outing here either. I'm still wondering if there's some kind of injury or what it is that's sort of keeping them from being at their best in their short program. If you're wondering if I have warmed up to this routine at all, the answer is no. Sometimes it happens. I talked about that in the men's episode. Like, I like Kazuki's short program more. Like, there are programs that I will like better as the season goes on. I'm pretty sure that my mind is not going to change on this one. Their elements were good. She's got to get lower in the death spiral. They did get credit for it here, unlike at Skate America, but it's just not where it needs to be. She tripped and fell at the beginning of their step sequence. Still got a level 4, so it didn't throw them off there. They did end up with some negative GOE on it, so she's lucky that it happened at the beginning and not in the middle of the step sequence. It got them off of the choreography, and they did not finish on time. She was laughing about it at the end, though. Usually they're pretty hard on themselves when they make mistakes, so that was something that she didn't beat herself up about. Did get a Q on her triple toe, didn't get any GOE on that death spiral. Of course, they ended up with the fall deduction and with a negative GOE on their step sequence. They only had 61 points in the short program, so they were actually third going into the free skate. In the free skate, great side-by-side jumps, and it is what they are best at now. She fell on, I think, the double axel in that sequence in Skate America, but got it here. Death spiral in this program, also just abysmal. The big issue for them here was their reverse lasso lift, not able to get it up, and that cost them about 8 or 9 points. The ending is still just not very smooth. Like at Skate America, they had a big, huge problem with the choreographic sequence. Here, they didn't have an issue on it, but it's just not smooth. Honestly, I think they need to just come up with a couple of different moves. I don't feel like that would be a whole lot to ask to change that in that program, because it just, for whatever reason, hasn't been working out for them. I think they're trying to do some kind of weird thing where she goes under his leg, or to try to make it look cool. But if it's not done smoothly, it doesn't look cool. And that's the final impression that you get for the judges. And in both of their Grand Prix, really hasn't been good. I also think they need to change the voiceovers that they have on there. It doesn't add anything to the program. I mean, people know it's pirates. I don't know what the voiceovers are there for. But they did enough to move up to second place here, and they have a, long shot, but they're not out of it to get into Grand Prix final. Pretty much out of it, but if like half the field withdraws, they could get in. But I'll talk about that at the end of the episode. In third place was Rebecca Gilardi and Filippo Ambrosini of Italy. In their short program, much, much better than what we have seen from them. The transition into that throw triple flip is just wow. So good. The dance lift entry into the press lift is also incredible, as is the exit. Do think that they have one of the better step sequences out there in pairs. They just need to clean up some of the last steps in that step sequence. In the free skate, so I did reach out to their coach about the change to go back to Dracula from last season. And he said that they got feedback after John Nix and after Lombardia that most of the judges thought that their Phantom free skate, which was their original program this season, it just didn't have the same effect as the Dracula program did. And so they decided to go back to that, revamped it a little bit, and it's now Dracula 2.0. So another successful outing for it here in terms of getting them on the podium. Definitely not their technical best. She put her hand down on the triple Salchow, which was an improvement over the last Grand Prix where she fell, but then he fell. And then on their axle sequence, which is kind of a disaster to me, she couldn't complete the single axle or get the third jump off. And those mistakes are not really uncharacteristic for them, to be perfectly honest. They often will have mistakes on either at least one, if not both, of their side-by-side jumping passes. Usually what helps them is their throws, but she put a foot down on their throw triple flip and a hand down on the triple loop. Also thought a couple of their exits on their lifts were not as smooth. Like I said, it was good enough to get them on the podium. It was a fairly weak field, honestly, but it's still a ways away from kind of what it looks like last season. But obviously with the last minute change, bringing it back, I'm sure they would love a bit more time to sort of refine it and get it better for Italian nationals and ultimately for Europeans. But they have 2 medals on the Grand Prix circuit. They needed to finish second here to get into the Grand Prix final. That didn't happen, and so it will be a tough. So they'll likely miss out on that this season, but I think they're still in a good position to get to Worlds since we have not seen Bakari Ingarizi so far this season. In fourth place was Lauren and Ethier of Canada. This was the best competition of their career. In the short program, doing their separate ways short program, feel like they could use more flow in and out of their triple twist, just a level 1. Did some nice side-by-side triple sow, and they had a nice throw triple flip. They were close to the personal best that they got earlier this year at John Nix. The only real nitpick is that step sequence is just really slow, and it's only a level 2, although I will say a lot of pair teams this season have struggled to get a level 4, and their death spiral was only a level 2, and I've talked about that on some prior podcasts as well, that in general that has been a struggle for most teams to get level 4s on the death spiral also. In their free skate, just beautiful throws. The only negative element that they had was his side-by-side triple loop, was the best long program of their career. They could certainly use some refinement, but it was good to see them skate well here. They were actually only 3 points away from the podium. So excellent result for them. In fifth place was Chan and Howe. Fun fact, so Emily Chan is dating Alexander Selevko, who was competing here also in the men's event. This is a team that, while right now they are slotted probably easily team number 3 in the U.S., because of the citizenship issues with Alicia Efimova and for Daniel Parkman, they are still likely to get the spot for the Olympics coming into next season, unless someone that is eligible for the Olympics that would be citizens could jump over them. That would ask a lot out of a team like Audrey Shin and Balazs Nagy, who we haven't seen yet internationally. It could happen, but even though I don't expect Emily and Spencer to make the world team based on what we've seen them this season, I still very much expect them to be on the Olympic team right now, and I'm still wanting to see really positive strides from them from competition to competition. Here in this short program to Ed Sheeran's Give Me Love, the throw triple flip was good. It's looking really good, and so I'm definitely seeing the wisdom in going with that over some of the other throws in the short program this season. She two-footed the triple toe, and it got downgraded to a double toe, which not good. The lift, I thought, looked a lot better here than it did in Canada. Big issue for them was their side-by-side spins. Spencer fell out of the camel spin, and there was no change of foot from him, and they lost their side-by-side spins completely, and that was very costly. And they couldn't make up for it either in the free skate. Not a great opening combo. Started with a triple toe, single axel, double axel, but they only got credit for the triple toe and a single axel. There must have been too much of a gap between her single axel and her double axel attempt is what only thing I can think of. She also ended up with an undercall on the triple toe. They just did the side-by-side double salchows again. I talked about that in Skate Canada. I feel like those double axels should be on the end of the double salchow instead of the triple toe, since the triple toe isn't very consistent for them. But that throw triple flip has become a really good element for them. It was good in the free skate as well. The triple loop throw looked good also. Did end up with a little bit of negative GOE, but I thought their lifts had nice speed. Just feel like this program just doesn't really sing for them. There's, some cool moments in there, like this nice little spiral that they do where Spencer goes underneath her leg. I just feel like they shouldn't be getting lower PCS than the Hungarians, and yet they are. In sixth place here was Nagaoka and Miroguchi from Japan. They were a last-minute replacement in this event, so they were going back-to-back after being at NHK last week. In the short program, she popped their side-by-side triple loop, and she put her hand down on the third triple loop. So they had a great lift, good speed, nice cool entry out of it. Their short program is to Goodbye Yellow Brick Road from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Interesting. They had a big error on their side-by-side spins. Either he changed his foot too early or she did hers late, but either way, they were doing two completely different things. So they were coming from behind big time. They were in 8th place after the short program. And while they finished 3rd in the free skates, they were only able to move up from 6th because of the deficit in the short. But let's talk about that free skate. Started off with a bang. Side-by-side triple loop, double axel combination. It was a huge point getter, like 12 points they got on that element. Throws were not clean, but the lifts were great. They got 120 points, and that was with errors on both throws and with only a double twist. I do wonder how close they are to getting a triple twist. They are newer to pairs, which I hope is an encouragement to some other skaters in Japan. We know that they have so many men and so many women and very few pair and ice dance teams. And I hope a team like this, who has not been pair skating for very long, but has shown the benefit of having that singles background with those side-by-side triple loop jumps that they're able to do, that will inspire some other skaters to want to try out pairs. In seventh place here was Vonanen and Clarissi of Finland. I'm bummed for them in that neither of their Grand Prix this season they were at their best, because they can be really dynamic and really strong in some of these technical elements when they're on, but they just haven't really seen them at their best this Grand Prix season. In the short program, he fell on his triple toe. The lift that they did looked so uncomfortable. Just in general, they looked really nervous. I thought that the step sequence was the best part. They looked like they had kind of loosened up by then. Only got a level 1 on the death spiral. Just don't think she got low enough. The free skate was just very uneven. Like, for instance, they got a triple toe, single axle, double axle in there. But then on the triple Salchow, she popped hers to a double. A nice triple flip in there. Just, again, felt like their lifts were not very smooth. I not super familiar with their coaching team and wonder if they wouldn't benefit from not changing coaches, but maybe just getting a little bit of outside help with some of their lift elements, especially to see if that can't help them grow a little bit more. And then in eighth place was Williams and Luer of the U.S. They were a third at Junior Worlds last season. They're listed as our coaching team: Drew Meekins, Natalia Mishkatunuk, who was here with them, and then Danny O'Shea, interestingly enough. I have to say, seeing Natalia Mishkatunuk in the Kiss and Cry, it just made me so incredibly happy. So, if you listen to this podcast, how much I love pair skating. I will say that it absolutely started in 1992 at the Olympics with two pair teams, Mishkatunuk and Dmitriev, who won the gold medal at that Olympics, and also Brasseur and Eisler, who won the bronze medal at that Olympics. Those two pair teams I adored just so much for very, very different reasons. And Natalia Mishkatunuk was just so amazingly flexible, and they would showcase that so well in a lot of their programs. And so I was just geeking out when I saw her in the Kiss and Cry. And if you're like born into the 2000s, you probably have no idea who she is. At one point, I'm going to do like a top, all-time best pair program episode. And you better believe that 92 free skate is going to be on there. All right, moving on to Williams and Luer. In the short program, she fell on her side-by-side triple toe, did squeak out the landing on the throw triple sow, didn't have a lot of distance on that one, which you'll notice a lot of times if you watch juniors that they don't get a lot of distance and sometimes a lot of height on their throws. Either that's something that usually that will develop a little bit more once they're older. She does have really nice showmanship. They were both just so happy to be there. They were just all smiles the whole time. He fell out of one of the variations in his spin. He got it back, but it did cost them a level and precious GOE. I think that we could work on his costume. When it started, I thought it was blood spatter that was on his shirt. But once we got close to it, like at the end, it turns out it was like sequins and jewels. And I'm like, okay, leave the bedazzler alone. Just no, it does not translate on TV at all. In their long program, they had a nice triple twist and side-by-side triple toes were successful. They had a bad fall on the throw triple sow, only did a double loop throw later in the program. They had a side-by-side double axle sequence where she fell on the third jump, which was the second double axle. So, I think they probably did about as well as could be expected at this point. It's always nice to see additional American pairs, and it's always nice to see young pairs get some good experience. Pamchenko Award for pairs. Again, this was kind of a messy event. And not a lot of contenders, I feel like. But Lauren and Ether, with the competition of their careers, making some really nice strides, they get the Pamchenko Award this week. Looking ahead to Cup of China, I think this is definitely one of the weaker fields that we've had in pairs this season. We have Leah Pereira and Trent Musha from Canada, Wang and Zhu from China, Kovalevs from France, Hassi and Boladin from Germany, Conti and Mashi from Italy, Gomez and Karavan from the Philippines, who are a replacement for Bakari and Garizi, who had to withdraw. We've got Chechtanina and Wozniak from Poland, and Katie McBeath and Daniil Parkman from the US, who we have not seen since Skate America. My predictions this week, the top two is pretty easy. Posse and Volodin, they have yet to lose at a Grand Prix. Not going to pick against them at this point. And Conti and Mashi look to be the classes of the field here, those two teams. Third place is more interesting. I think most people are probably going to pick Pereira and Michaud. I think I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit and say McBeath and Parkman and make some improvements from Skate America and squeak onto the podium. All right, let's look at our participants vying to be in the Grand Prix final. So we now have 4 people who have qualified, with Gilardi and Ambrosini getting the bronze here instead of the silver. That allowed Cam and O'Shea to officially qualify. So our qualifiers are Salato and Deschamps with 30 points, Mira and Kihara with 28 points, Maltikina and Buralava and Cam and O'Shea both with 24 points, which leaves 2 spots left. Likely to be Hassi and Volodin and Conti and Mashi. But Gilardi and Ambrosini sit on the bubble with 22 points, and Popolova and Shevchenko hanging by a thread with 20 points. So basically, Hassi and Volodin, if they finish 4th, they'll get 7 points, and with 22 points, they would be in because they have a win, and so that would get them the tiebreaker over Gilardi and Ambrosini. It's very difficult to see how in this field they would be even 4th, let alone even worse. I think that's pretty much a done deal if they just show up and complete both programs. Conti and Mashi with 13, they just need to finish. I mean, if they finish 1st or 2nd, they're definitely in. If they finish in 3rd place, they'll have 24 points and they would also be in. So their safe bet is just to finish on the podium. If they finish 4th, and they start needing some crazy things to happen. Leah and Trent have a very outside chance of getting in. They would need to win. Winning would get them 22 points, but then they would also need Hassi and Volodin or Conti and Mashi to finish low enough so that they don't get 22 points. It's basically they would need Minerva and Nikita to get 5th, and for Sarah and Nicolo to be on the podium, and then they could get in. It's very unlikely for that to happen. I think that of all of the disciplines, this one is the most straightforward, and I would be shocked if we had any other combination of people in the Grand Prix final outside of the 4 that have qualified, plus Hassi, Volodin, and Conti and Mashi. Although I will say that last year it was Honk and Kukul that had to withdraw, so being that first alternate is worth something because you never know if somebody might need to withdraw. Even if, Leah and Trent could pull up in ultimate upset here and win and still not get in, they would put themselves in as first alternate because they would have a win over Gilardi and Ambrosini. And again, that might be worth something. Even if they can't qualify for Grand Prix final, there's still like a path, albeit slim. All right. That completes my coverage of the pairs event, and it completes my coverage of Finlandia Trophy. As always, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. You can find me on all the socials at iSkatePodcast. You can also send me an email at thecuttingedgepod@gmail.com. Cup of China, who knows if I'll see any of it live or not. I barely saw any of Finlandia Trophy live, which is why it takes so long to get the recaps out sometimes when I'm not able to see them live. I have to watch them before I can recap on them, and so it just takes a little bit longer. My goal is always to have these out before Wednesday. Unlike this week, it just happened that way, so thank you guys for being patient. I hope that you're enjoying your week, and I'll talk to you again soon.